call me a criminal according to the laws of Kenya because I used Bhang, I used heroin. So then what are you telling somebody? Okay, fine, if I feel like a criminal, I'm just going to be a criminal, do criminal activities, continue using drugs badly. If I die, I die. Who cares?
Rita, good to see you once again. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you both.
3 years later.
3 years later. You guys look good.
As do you.
Thank you.
How do you feel 3 years later? Because you had just come out of rehab then.
Yes, I had just come out of rehab. I was in the process of kind of rewiring my brain, getting my balance back. So I feel good. Jeff. I feel good. I am not currently using anything. So I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, my life is getting back on track.
At that time, you had gone through several rehabs. And most of them, up until the last one, were unsuccessful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why? I mean, it's because of the system, the way you were trying, or maybe you weren't putting enough effort, or what was it?
I think what it was and what it is with many people is that being forced into rehab can work for some people, but for most it doesn't. Because it doesn't come from you. So if I was forced into rehab, I was just doing it for my parents or for whoever paid for it. And it was not an initiative of my own. So immediately I would leave rehab, then I would go back to get my high, to get my fix. And then the cycle continues. But the last rehab, which was something called harm reduction, it was something called methadone, which is used to treat heroin addiction. So it substitutes the heroin in your body and allows you to take your time to get off it, to be weaned off. And it takes care of the withdrawals. You get counseling services at the same time. You get medication for other small ailments. And then eventually you decide that, I'm done. I want to get off this. And you do.
People, you mentioned heroin, right? I mean, where do people get heroin, first of all, here? Where do you get heroin?
Jeff, just Tembea, Nairobi. I mean, Nairobi is well known in Africa, just like you would say Lagos or Johannesburg, where you can find anything. If you want to find something, you will find something. Just want to.
And it's available.
It is available.
And people can afford it is the other question. How is one able to afford it?
The misconception about these things is that they are expensive. But you may start out by experimenting. So you might, get some money, try it out the first time. But as you go along, and if you're using it for the wrong reasons, then you get hooked. You will look for that money. You will get it however, wherever, in order to feel better. Because now addiction becomes, you need it in order to feel well. Otherwise, you're physically and psychologically sick. So you'll get that money. Whatever it takes. Would
you take it amongst friends? Was it a group of you? Was it amongst your peers? What kind of environment?
So in the beginning, it was an experiment because I was in school, so I just tried it. I think I was just looking for a coping mechanism. So I tried it. Then as you get into the using community, then yes, you do find other people who then become your friends. For some people, they start with their friends, but for me, then I went and found people who I felt like they were my tribe because they understood we were stigmatized together, we were hated together. So you just form lifetime bonds even.
Once you left, did you leave them still in it, still addicted? Are they still there?
Yes and no. Some of them did manage to finish the rehab process, either before me or with me. But I did leave many there because, again, the system is just not conducive to people getting better. So because I had support systems that allowed me to get out, and I had something to go back to. I had my socioeconomic situation was a bit better. I could go back to something. But for those who have nothing to go back to, maybe they'll finish treatment and end up just right back where they started. So I did leave quite a few there, and that's why the work that we're doing right now is so important. Because there's so many left behind, and if we had a system that worked for them, that allowed treatment and support, then they would come out as well.
So did you lose some friends?
Oh, when I started? Oh, definitely. Yes. And I missed them very much, but I understood. In hindsight, I came to understand that it was better for them to just separate themselves from me, because peer influence would have probably, I was the life of the party, so maybe one of them or two of them would have started using because of me. So I don't blame them for it. I did lose some friends. But I understand, society is stigma. So that was the first response. And it's okay. It's all right. But that's what needs to change now. If they understood that maybe I had a mental health issue that led me to do that, then maybe we'd have had a different relationship. But yeah.
What did your family think? Or when did they get to know that you were an addict?
In the beginning, they didn't know, because again, the fear of what they would say. You know, this is a student, law student. What are you doing? So I kept that from them for a while until I got to the point where I was going to Madare Hospital every day to take my methadone. So then they would wonder, unaenda wapi? Every morning, where is this that you have to go no matter what's happening? So I had to slowly tell them. I brought them to the hospital. I had the doctor sit down with them and explain. And then we went to a psychiatrist, and and they were able to explain that there were issues that had made me prone to substance use. Then finally they understood. Once they got the mental health aspect of it, once they understood that, then they were able to understand it and know that, okay, this is why she's addicted. It was difficult for them as well.
I was about to ask, when I mean, they must have been shocked.
Oh, I think every time my mother hears one of these interviews, she just closes her eyes, even her ears, her eyes, because it's still just such a big shock. There's not enough education information out there. So when you say heroin, it's, oh my goodness. So they were shocked, but they were supportive, because I think they just didn't want to lose me. We have buried so many people from just, overdose and being treated harshly by the families. So I think they just didn't want to lose me. So they just kept quiet, carried me like an egg, gave me the support I needed. And honestly, it helped. Yeah.
Because it could have gone the other way, huh?
It could, and it has for many people. Yeah.
Tell me, heroin is the one that is injected. Excuse my ignorance here. That's the one that's injected, right?
Yes.
And where do people get that, number one? And I asked you before that. And how much would one charge or pay for, what is it, a hit? You call it a hit or whatever it is.
Yeah.
A syringe full or whatever.
Okay, yes.
How much does that cost?
So, well, yes, first of all, it is available, like we said. And it can cost anything from 200 shillings to 1,000 bob, depending on how much you want. As for the syringes, the practice before was you just go and buy a syringe somewhere in a chemist or something, and then you probably share with your friends, which was dangerous. Now people are being given clean syringes so that to reduce the risk of HIV transmission. But so just to answer your question, it can cost anything from 200 bob to 1,000 bob, and you can get it anywhere. So you can choose to get your syringes the proper way at the treatment centers, or you can go on and keep putting your life in danger by buying from wherever and sharing and not knowing how to clean your wounds and how to inject safely.
And again, excuse my ignorance, well, how long before one gets hooked, if you will, or does it depend on usage? Or
yes, it does depend on usage, and I guess on your metabolism, I don't know, on your system. But world over, it's known to be one of the most addictive substances. So it can take anything from 3 days to 3 months. But for me, it quite literally took a week. So 5 days. Yes, 5 days.
Of taking every day?
Of taking every day. So like I said earlier, in hindsight, for me, I did have a mental health issue. I had undiagnosed ADHD that made me prone to experimenting in substance use. So it was very easy for me to get addicted. Very easy, because the first time I took it, I felt so good. I felt a high I had never felt, just like someone would with their first hit of weed. So it was very easy for me to get hooked and just want to feel that escape, feel it every day. Yeah.
And then after that, once you were hooked, you couldn't get off it. Like, how often would you take a hit?
Every day. How often? A couple of times in a day. So maybe 5.
In a day?
Yeah, maybe 5 times.
How long does a hit last? Or it depends again?
Again, it depends on your mode of use. If you're injecting, it might last longer. If you're sniffing, which is what I was doing, because I thought I was a cool kid. So if you're sniffing, it'll take a shorter time. If you're smoking, it just depends on your mode of use, and again, your system. So some people use up to 10 times a day, and you see that's where it becomes sort of what they call a sickness, because you have to. It goes down and you get sick. So you have to. Whether you want to or not, you have to.
And the withdrawal symptoms, like when you couldn't get a hit, when you couldn't sniff, what would happen to you?
Wow. Yeah, no, you've just taken me right back to that feeling, goosebumps. You feel dehydrated, headache, joint aches, stomach ache, stomach problems. It's like you have typhoid and malaria, and add something else on top at the same time. So it's a completely horrible feeling, and you can go to hospital, but if they don't know what you're going through, then they'll just give you painkillers and they won't work. So you need an opioid, you need something, you need morphine, so you'll often just go back to get your heroin, and immediately you get it, you feel better. So at that point you're sick, you get your heroin and you dawa for you at that point, and you feel better. So the withdrawal symptoms are very, very serious, and I think that's why many people hide away, because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to have a bowel movement in the middle of the day that you didn't expect, because you're going through withdrawals. So you'll hide, and you stick with your crew, the people who understand.
My goodness, Rita, that must have been painful. Eventually, I mean, how were you able to overcome all this? Because, we read stories every day. People young people committing suicide. They're killing themselves. They're overdosing.
And it's very sad. It's very sad. Both downtown and uptown, people are dying from drug overdoses. How I was able to get out is that I don't know. I had support systems. I don't know if just divine intervention just came and gave me support systems, because for one, I could have been taken to prison. Right now, if you're caught with any drug, you're taken to prison. However, for me, I think the police who are around me just felt sorry for me. Because once they even called me, I said, they're like, "Hey, madam, kwa nini unatumia?" So they had an option to arrest me and they didn't. That's the first thing that kind of, helped me get out. Then the support system also from home, understanding that, okay, this person has a mental health issue, so she does not need our condemnation. And then the availability of treatment. I was so lucky, Jeff, that at the time that I was in trouble, this methadone program came about. And I ran to enroll myself. So just treatment was there, support was there, and I didn't have as much stigma as other people, maybe because they saw me as somebody who was educated and had potential or whatever. But just that combination of factors is what allowed me to get out. And that's why I left other people there who didn't have that combination of factors.
No. And now you work for an NGO that's helping our drug addicts, that's trying to get people out of that rut, out of that hole.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So I work for an NGO called Voices of Community Action and Leadership. That's Vocal Kenya. It is a drug policy advocacy organization. And we work together with a couple of other organizations who provide these services, like the clean needles, the referral to treatment for people who use drugs. It's more than just getting people out. It's creating a conducive environment for people not to get in, for like these young people who are escaping, who need to escape through anything. So for them not to get into addiction as much as they want to use whatever they're using. So for them, for prevention and for treatment. So if you're in trouble, you can be referred somewhere. And over and above, to push for laws that allow for these things. Jeff, in 2017, I voted Uhuru because he had given me methadone. Like, I was so grateful, So there's the treatment, but then the laws are not favorable. So yes, there's a hospital I can go to, but then it's still a crime. So the police won't take me to the hospital, they'll take me to jail. So that is pretty much the gist of what we do. We refer, we push for proper systems, and we look out for people who use drugs and proper services.
Can you tell, like, if you walk into a room, can you tell who's using more or less?
Well, I can. I don't know if you would be able to if you saw somebody. But there's, of course, the symptoms that everyone should know about, like antisocial behavior, withdrawn. Then there's some things you just can't see on the face. For example, with heroin users, you can tell most of the time, because when it becomes problematic, and in a country without systems, drug use will always become problematic. We're not in Europe where people can just use and go to hospital. So you can tell with people here because there's just not enough support for people to just function and look okay, except for those with money. So people in high-end areas, you can't tell. So people will be functioning, doing their work, having their jobs. But in the lower end, you can probably tell, depending on what drug they're using. Yeah.
Does it shock you every time? I mean, are the numbers rising? Because you're there, you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Are the numbers rising of young kids using?
That is, it is just such a sad fact, Jeff. Yes, they are rising dramatically. It was a lot easier in my time and in the time before mine, because I think things were a bit better. You could get a job, you could do things. But with the economy the way it is, more and more young people are turning to drugs to escape. So without the information of what is what, and so they're using and experimenting on anything. Numbers are going so high up, and the users are younger and younger, as young as 9. 9 years old. So it's really it's a ticking time bomb. And if something doesn't change now, then we are just literally waiting for it to explode and react like we always do. Just react. Yeah.
We're always reactive rather than
proactive.
Right.
Yeah, we like to just wait for a crisis, then we can say, oh, there's a crisis, we need to. No. But if we had the systems now and the supportive laws now, then we could probably save a generation, because it's a generation, Jeff. It's a whole generation, the 15 to 24 now. If they all get into addiction, what are we doing?
What are they telling you is their biggest problem, Rita? What do they tell you is their biggest issue?
The young people?
Yes.
I think, well, according to them, is the perceived lack of a future. Lack of, even as young people, they can see that we are not in a good place. We're not heading in a good direction. And then the lack of information as well. They have the internet, but back home, so they can know what they know. But back home, their parents and their communities either don't know or don't want to know or don't want to talk about drugs, don't want to talk about mental health. So that is their biggest problem. They feel trapped in a society where things should be happening. See, they don't have the trappings that we have of the Moi era, of the Kibaki era. They are fresh minds. They know systems can work, and they want systems to work, and they see that systems are not working. So they're looking for an escape, and they will look for it in drugs. It's the easiest. Did you see a video the other day of a girl who downed a Gilby's
I saw that.
Mzinga?
Yes,
Mzinga. I know. Why would somebody seemingly educated, seemingly okay, do something like that? There's something that they're trying to escape. They're restricted in some way from thinking, from being a certain way, and they're trying to escape. It's ridiculous.
And it's across the board. I mean, it's not just, like you say, it's not just downtown. It's not just the lower end.
Yes.
It's even uptown as well.
Even uptown. It's just that I cannot mention names, but we have buried Watoto wa minister. Personally, I have been at those funerals, Mtoto wa minister, Mtoto wa MP, for drug overdoses. So drugs, drug use is the great equalizer. And when it becomes problematic, then we all die. You can't throw money at addiction. You can't. You either have a good system or you don't. Otherwise, you throw money and that person will just use it to buy more.
How do people get in touch with the Vocal?
Well, we are on our social media. So Vocal and many other service provider organizations. We are on social media as Vocal Kenya, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram.
There's someone listening to you for the very first time, and they're in big trouble. They feel they're in trouble, but they don't know how to reach out.
Yes.
What do you tell them, that young man, young lady?
You are not alone. I mean, you are not alone. You are not the first. You will definitely not be the last. And what you're going through, we have been there. I have been there, and there's assistance. There's help for you. Just find a way to reach out to somebody who, if it's not your parent, if your parent is not understanding, reach out to a cousin, reach out to somebody who will assist you get treatment, which is what I did. I couldn't tell my mom, so I reached out to my aunt, and just accept and start the process, and also just understand that it takes time.
2018, when you were last here, did you think you would make it the next 3 years? Were you hopeful at that point?
At that point, by that point I was. At the point where I knew treatment had been available. But then I still didn't know if my mind would go back to what it was, if I would be able to still, go back and practice law and just do the things that I usually did. But luckily for me, I had doctors who explained to me that it's a process. This chemical is like this one is like this, you have to balance this, and pole you'll get there. So I did have hope. And that's really what you have to have. You have to have that hope. Without it, then you're not going to move forward. So even if your environment is not supportive, just believe in yourself, because you know what you're going through. You know why you're doing it. You know you're escaping something. So just I did have hope, and I'm good now. I feel good. It's a process. It's forever, but I feel good now.
When you hear a whiff of bangi once in a while when you're walking downtown or wherever in some neighborhood, how do you feel?
At the beginning, it was a bit difficult. You get a bit of craving, but right now I can pretty much go anywhere. I am careful, not to hang around too much, in case I remember and feel like or I go back to something that I want to escape from, or if I haven't dealt with my issues. But because I've been through the therapy process, I can be just the same way you walk around and smell a whiff of bangi and you'll be fine. It's the same with me. I can have my drink on the weekend. I can I can hang around people who are smoking bangi, and we'll be okay.
Yeah. Tell me something. Does it give you nightmares or sleepless nights when you think you could relapse at any point? Like you just say, you're not perfect, right?
Yes.
Anything can happen and you can relapse.
Yes.
Does that give you nightmares or sleepless nights?
I love my sleep, Jeff. I love my sleep. Because I didn't have it for such a long time. I didn't have a normal sleep pattern for such a long time. I choose not to have those fears. It's very easy to have those nightmares, but I just make a choice that I'm going to live my life. I almost didn't have this life to live. I almost died. So I'm not going to waste time having nightmares of relapse. I'm just going to keep myself safe, go to therapy, see my psychiatrist, see my counselor all the time, and just be happy. So no nightmares. I love my sleep. Yes.
Look, by the way, in the last 3 years, something else happened that changed the entire planet. Something called COVID-19,
Yes.
which added to mental health, which added to all these burdens that people have.
Yes.
I mean, it must have been a nightmare here for people that you see every day.
Yes, it was. It was a nightmare for everybody, but especially for people who already have problems with substance use, and then the stigma of substance use plus the stigma of COVID, and the isolation, and the lack of social support, the reduction of counseling services. And this is when actually drug use went up among young people, because already they were feeling hopeless, and then now COVID comes. Like, what am I going to do with my life? So it has really been difficult for them, very difficult. But I think people are, it's just that Kenyans are resilient. People are survivors.
And younger, that's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Is that, young people are wasting away.
They are.
They're wasting their lives.
You've seen that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they are. I mean, in every county, every family will tell you they have somebody who's wasting their potential due to addiction. So then you've got to ask yourself, it can't just be an isolated issue. It is a national problem. Why are young people wasting away? Other than the lack of socioeconomic opportunities like Kitambo, it's the lack of information, it's the criminalization. So if you're found with anything, you'll get arrested instead of supported, and you'll be seen as a criminal for the rest of your life. So I should be seen as a criminal. Now I can call me a criminal according to the laws of Kenya, because I used Bhang, I used heroin. So then what are you telling somebody? Okay, fine, if I feel like a criminal, I'm just going to be a criminal, do criminal activities, continue using drugs badly. If I die, I die. Who cares? That's the mentality that young people have right now.
And organizations like Akada,
yes,
are they being helpful? Do they step in and helping in any way?
And Akada is being helpful in terms of accrediting rehabilitation centers and making sure rehabs. But then the Akada has so much potential that they are not tapping into. I don't know if it's because of the politics or they just don't have enough information, but they are not doing enough. They are not doing as much as a body like Akada can and should be doing.
Your advice to young people, and I know you talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
First of all, do you get tired of talking to them? Do you get tired of always singing the same old song, telling the same story? Does that wear you down?
It is. I do turn off my phone on the weekends. It is draining, but what's draining is not the talking to them, because I know they, if I don't do it, not many people will, and there are not many of us who are doing it. What is draining is doing the work and then not having the backup to to do the work, not having the support. So you'll talk to them, but they'll still go and experience the same thing. Yeah, it's not time to talk to them because they are the future. We were once the future. I was once being told, oh, you are the future of this country. So my future, fine, I am still the future. The future is now, but that addiction just took so much of my time. So I don't get tired of talking to them because they need talking to, because the systems don't work. So it's the people who have to work. See, that's why we need the systems to work so that we can do less work and have a Saturday to yourself. Yeah.
Do you regret ever experimenting, ever taking drugs? Do you regret it?
Regret. It's a strong word. I do feel like I don't know if there's truth to things happening for a reason, because sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to help pull some people out, but I do regret putting my family through what they went through. I do regret, taking years of what I could have done. But that's okay because I'm still doing something useful. What I regret is what my family went through. But I feel like if people had more information on mental health, on addiction, then it wouldn't have been so bad. Yeah, so I regret it halfway. And then the other half, I'm just accepting and just embracing what happened.